Over $200 silver. I have no reason to think we're not going there. That's not your cousin on WhatsApp. That's Eric Sprott in a NASDAQ interview, casually dropping a top-end target framework that turns silver into a $200 problem. And the moment you hear that, your brain does the same thing everyone's brain does. Okay, but how? Now, here's the twist that makes this video dangerous. Samsung's battery research just gave the how a new engine. Not because Samsung said silver to $200. They didn't. But because Samsung showed a next-generation battery pathway where silver is literally part of the architecture. A silver carbon composite anode concept that helps enable a high-performance, all-solid-state lithium metal battery. And if silver becomes even partially embedded in the next battery era, then silver doesn't just have an investor story. It gets the one story that turns markets into riots. Industrial necessity. And once a metal becomes industrial necessity, price stops being an opinion. Price becomes the rationing tool. So when I say Samsung's $200 guarantee, I'm not saying Samsung promised a number. I'm saying Samsung just made the upside tail risk fatter. Because silver demand doesn't need to explode for $200 to become possible. It just needs to outpace supply in a world that already runs deficits. And silver has been running deficits. We're going to unpack this like a war room briefing. Because if you own a phone, a laptop, a car, a home, a power bill, a job in the modern economy, this story touches everything you own. By the end of this video, you'll understand why $200 silver is even a serious top-end scenario, the ratio argument plus the physical argument. NASDAQ, what Samsung actually built, and why silver is inside the battery narrative. Why small amounts of silver still matter when scaled to global manufacturing. Why industrial demand is the most dangerous kind of demand, and why silver's industrial demand has already been hitting records. The real squeeze signals lease rates, vault flows, deliverable categories, and what they mean when the system gets tight. How this changes the decision from trade the chart to understand the regime. Quick disclaimer once, educational commentary only, not financial advice. The $200 receipt. NASDAQ, the 19th of May 2025. Silver used to trade at 15 to 1 to gold. At today's gold price, that would be over $200. He says he has no reason to think we're not going there. Now stop. Because this is where weak videos mess up. Weak videos do one of two things. They treat $200 like a guaranteed prophecy, or they dismiss it like it's impossible. The smart approach is the only approach that survives. Treat it as a scenario and ask what conditions create the scenario. And that's where Samsung becomes relevant. Because $200 silver doesn't need one miracle. It needs a stack of pressures. And Samsung is a new weight on the stack. 40, what does $200 mean? Really? You need to translate $200 into plain English. $200, silver is not a slightly better year. $200 silver is. Contracts rewritten, manufacturers redesigning products, substitution attempts failing, every ounce getting fought over, and price being used to decide who gets supply. It's not a chart pump, it's a rationing price. And the reason this matters, rationing prices happen when the world discovers something uncomfortable. The metal isn't as available as the paper market made it look. The two roads to $200. There are two main roads. Road A, the ratio snapback. That's the Sprott framing. Gold-silver ratio mean reverts toward historic norms and silver catches up violently. Road B, the physical necessity squeeze. This is where silver demand becomes sticky and industrial and supply can't respond fast enough. Samsung's battery story lives on Road B. And here's the critical link. When Road B gets strong enough, Road A becomes easier. Because when silver becomes scarce in industry, silver becomes psychologically monetary again. That's how you get both roads at once. Samsung's battery. What they actually did, no lies. Just mechanism. Samsung's research publication describes an all-solid-state lithium metal battery enabled by an Ag-C composite anode with no excess lithium. Samsung's global newsroom also described presenting the study to Nature Energy and that their approach uses a silver-carbon composite layer. In coverage of the study notes, the ultra-thin Ag-C nanocomposite layer is about 5 micrometers thick and helps increase energy density up to 900 watt-hours per liter in the prototype. Now, what does that mean in human words? It means Samsung explored a pathway where silver is not jewelry. Silver is a functional component in an advanced battery design. And batteries are the one product category that touches literally everything. Why solid-state batteries matter? Solid-state batteries matter because the world wants higher energy density, higher safety, longer life, faster charging, lower fire risk, better performance under stress. And when a technology becomes the next platform, it scales. It doesn't scale politely. It scales like smartphones did. It scales like AI did. And if a material is inside the platform, that material inherits the platform's growth curve. Why silver showing up in batteries is a big signal. This is the heart of the whole video. It's not Samsung equals all batteries. It's Samsung equals proof of concept that silver can be engineered into the architecture. Once a major research group demonstrates a credible mechanism, industry does what industry always does. Competitors test variations. Suppliers plan optionality. Manufacturers explore production paths. And the material begins to show up in demand models. Even if it's not mass adoption tomorrow, it becomes an option on future demand. And options matter in tight markets. Because tight markets don't need certainty, they reprice on credible risk. This changes everything you own. Make it feel personal, not abstract. Your phone is a silver story. Your phone is already an electrical plus conductive plus precision manufacturing story. But what happens when batteries improve? People upgrade faster. Manufacturers release more models. Devices become more power hungry. Accessory ecosystems grow. Even if silver and batteries remain small or niche, the battery race accelerates the electronics race. And silver is deeply tied to industrial electronics demand, which is why industrial demand has been hitting record highs. The Silver Institute. So your everyday life isn't separate from this. You are the demand curve. Your car is a power grid component now. Cars aren't cars anymore. They are mobile computers, sensors, power management systems. The world is building rolling electrical infrastructure. More electronics equals more conductive components. And the battery is the core. If battery density and safety improve, adoption scales. When adoption scales, the entire industrial stack scales with it. Your home is becoming an energy node. Modern homes are being rebuilt into charging hubs, solar plus inverter systems, backup storage, smart monitoring, electrified heating, cooking, grid interaction. This is not future talk. This is the direction of the modern build-out. And silver's demand story increasingly benefits from infrastructure and electrification trends, a point the Silver Institute highlights as part of the green economy demand drivers. The Silver Institute. Your job is inside this pipeline. Here's the line that makes viewers uncomfortable. If silver becomes a bottleneck, it doesn't just change investing. It changes cost of manufacturing, pricing of consumer electronics, rollout of energy systems, timelines of industrial expansion. That means real economic effects, not a metal nerd effect, a civilization supply chain effect. The part people miss. Silver demand doesn't need to double to break the system. People constantly say, but it's only a tiny amount of silver per device. Yes, and that sentence has destroyed more investors than any other sentence in commodities. Because the correct sentence is, tiny per unit times gigantic unit count equals massive demand. And the unit count in the battery era is insane. Tens of millions of cars, millions of grid storage units, billions of devices. And now, the AI data center build-out. Business Insider highlighted silver's growing role linked to AI infrastructure and data center expansion as part of the demand narrative around silver's surge. Business Insider. So no, you don't need a kilogram of silver per battery. You need a world that keeps adding new demand layers while supply struggles to respond. The world is already running deficits. This is the part where the music changes. Because we're not talking about a hypothetical tight market. The Silver Institute reported, industrial demand rose to a record 680.5 million ounces in 2024, fourth consecutive record year. The Silver Institute. Global demand exceeded supply, resulting in a 148.9 million ounce structural deficit in 2024. Fourth consecutive annual deficit. The Silver Institute. Deficits mean the system is living off inventory. Inventories are the shock absorber. And shock absorbers don't last forever. The $200 guarantee explained, so you don't get fact-checked into oblivion. Samsung did not guarantee a number. The guarantee is the mechanism. If demand becomes structurally higher than supply for long enough, price rises until demand is rationed. That is how commodity markets enforce reality. So Samsung's $200 guarantee is short for Samsung's research strengthens the probability of a future where silver demand remains sticky and essential, making extreme price scenarios more plausible. And we're anchoring that scenario language with a real top-end framework that NASDAQ printed from Sprott. The real squeeze. It starts in the plumbing, lease rates, vaults, deliverable metal. When markets break, the first cracks show up where nobody looks. Lease rates, vault movements, delivery categories, spreads between regions, availability stories, not price stories. Bloomberg reported silver lease rates fell to about 5.6% after surging to an all-time peak of 34.9% on the 9th of October 2025, data compiled by Bloomberg. That's not normal. That's the market screaming, "We need metal now." Lease rates are basically the price of borrowing physical metal. When that price spikes, it's because supply is tight where it matters. London Vault data. LBMA's vault data shows that at end November 2025, London vaults held 27,187 tons of silver, up 3.5% MOM. Now here's the key. Held in vaults does not mean available to you. It means metal exists, but it may be owned, allocated, pledged, or spoken for. In a squeeze, the question isn't, does metal exist? It's, can metal be delivered on the schedule the paper market implies? COMEX registered. CME's silver stock report for the 12th of December 2025 shows total registered 137,802,046.028 ounces. CME Group. Registered is the category that is generally eligible for delivery against futures. But even then, the system relies on willingness and flows, not just numbers on a page. Why this matters for the Samsung story. Samsung doesn't need to consume all silver to matter. Samsung matters because silver is already in a deficit-prone market. The Silver Institute, industrial demand is already record high. The Silver Institute, the market has already shown stress through lease rate spikes, Bloomberg.com. And silver has already surged past $60 amid supply squeeze narratives. Financial Times. In other words, this is not a sleepy market waiting for a catalyst. This is a tight market where new demand options matter. The 2025 proof, silver already entered squeeze behavior. Financial Times reported silver surged past $60 per ounce for the first time amid a severe global supply squeeze, noting persistent supply deficits and that silver production is often a byproduct of other mining, meaning supply response can be delayed. Financial Times. That's exactly the kind of structural constraint that makes new demand pathways like Samsung's more impactful. Because if supply can't surge quickly, price does the balancing. If $200 is possible, what is the mechanism? The silver atom hiding inside a battery. Samsung's all-solid-state research is enabled by an Ag-C composite anode. Home, Samsung Research. You say this on camera. Silver isn't in this story as decoration. It's there as engineering. Then you drop the 5 micrometers detail and energy density mention to make it feel real. The demand stack. Record industrial demand. The Silver Institute. Structural deficits. The Silver Institute. You frame it like this. Silver doesn't need one big buyer. It needs a stack of steady buyers that never leave. Then you name them. Grid. AI, electronics, demand story. Business Insider. Electrification, devices. And potentially next-gen battery architecture. The stress signal. Lease rate peak 34.9%. That's what markets look like when physical gets tight. The price as a gatekeeper. Price is how the system chooses who gets metal. Then you re-anchor. That's why $60 happened. That's why $200 becomes plausible in a tail scenario. Deep dive. How battery tech turns into metal demand. The scale engine. There are technologies that behave like platforms. Smartphones, internet, cloud, AI, electrification, batteries. Platform technologies don't grow linearly. They grow in waves, and each wave brings more factories, more supply chain lockups, more inventory hoarding, more just-in-case purchasing. That's how physical markets get squeezed. Not by one buyer, by 1,000 buyers who all say, we can't be the one who runs out. Why industrial buyers are different. Investors buy when they feel brave. Industrial buyers buy when they feel fear. Fear of missing shipment windows, losing contracts, production stoppage, reputational damage. In other words, industrial buyers do not flinch the way traders do. That's why industrial demand can push metals into repricing regimes. The required ingredient moment. The moment a material becomes a required ingredient, the market changes its rules. Because now the demand isn't optional. It becomes part of a bill of materials. And that's why Samsung's silver carbon pathway matters. It's not saying this will happen. It's saying this can happen. And in tight markets, can happen gets priced in. The supply side. Why silver can't just show up on command. FT noted that silver supply response can be delayed because silver is mainly a byproduct of other mining operations. Financial Times. This matters because if silver price rises, miners cannot always ramp silver instantly. If you can't ramp supply, the balancing mechanism is price. That's how you get violent moves. Deficits are the slow poison. A single deficit year is a warning. 4 consecutive deficit years is a structural message. The Silver Institute, it means the system uses inventories to keep things smooth, and smoothness creates complacency. Then, one day, the smoothness disappears. That's what squeezes feel like. The paper versus physical explanation, without going full tinfoil. Paper markets are about price discovery. Physical markets are about delivery. When a market is comfortable, those two align. When a market is stressed, they can diverge. That's when you see borrowing costs spike, lease rates, region-specific shortages, inventory moving between hubs, and spot versus futures dislocations. You don't have to accuse anyone of wrongdoing to explain this. This is how logistics and incentives behave under stress. Samsung's $200 silver guarantee triggers curiosity, disbelief, prove-it energy. And then you satisfy the viewer by saying, Samsung didn't guarantee a price. Samsung strengthened the demand pathway. The price guarantee is the market's rationing mechanism. Then you show Sprott quote for the top-end scenario frame. NASDAQ. Samsung Axi composite anode as the demand option catalyst. Structural deficits plus record industrial demand as the underlying tightness. That's how you keep it dramatic without lying. Silver is $200. It means manufacturers attempt substitution aggressively. Some applications pay any price because failure is worse. Other applications get rationed. Premiums and lead times become a story. The public notices after the move. $200 is not everyone got rich. $200 is the system broke its old assumptions. That's why this story matters. The 3 scenarios. The clean way to talk about price. Silver stays strong but volatile. Industrial demand remains high. The Silver Institute. Deficits persist periodically. The Silver Institute. Price trends upward with brutal pullbacks. Scenario 2. Stress regime. More episodes of physical tightness. Lease rates spike again. Bloomberg.com. Regional shortages appear. Delivery becomes the story. Silver explores higher ranges faster. Scenario 3. Panic, rationing. This is where $200 becomes plausible. Monetary demand returns. Ratio compresses the Sprott frame. NASDAQ, industrial demand doesn't disappear. Supply can't ramp fast enough. Byproduct constraint. Financial Times. Price becomes the gatekeeper. No certainty. Just mechanism. This isn't about going all in. It's about understanding the regime. Then you give a simple behavior framework. Separate speculation from foundation. Don't treat volatility as proof you're wrong. Watch the physical stress indicators. Understand that industrial demand is sticky. Again, not financial advice. Drop one of these every 2-3 minutes. This is not a chart story. It's a delivery story. Silver doesn't need hype. It needs ounces. The question isn't, is silver up? The question is silver available? When the lease rate spikes, the mask slips. Bloomberg.com. When a company like Samsung uses silver in a battery architecture, that's not decoration, that's engineering. So let me end this. the only honest way. Samsung didn't promise you $200, but Samsung helped prove something that makes $200 more plausible than people want to admit. Silver is not just money, it's infrastructure. And the infrastructure era is accelerating. Meanwhile, industrial demand has already hit record levels. The Silver Institute, the market has already run multi-year deficits. The Silver Institute, physical stress has already shown up in lease rate spikes. And silver has already surged past $60 in a supply squeeze narrative. Financial Times. So if you're waiting for a polite, quiet, easy silver market, you might be waiting for a world that no longer exists. Because in a world where batteries, AI infrastructure, grid electrification, and devices all expand at once, the metal that touches everything becomes the metal everyone fights for. And if silver becomes even slightly more embedded in the battery future, then the question isn't, will silver go up? The question is, will there be enough ounces to build the world they're promising?